To the Provo Municipal Council. I was just informed that I guess staff forgot to unlock one of the doors. So we are so sorry those doors were locked. They are not normally locked. They're not meant to be locked. So we apologize for that. We are going to do a roll call. The elected officials here today are Councillor Becky Bogdan, Councillor Gary Garrett, Councillor Rachel Whipple, myself, Catrice McKay, Councillor George Handley, and Craig Christensen. We will have an opening prayer. See, I got all distracted and didn't write it down, but she knows who she is and she will tell us her name when she comes up.
I'm Angie Carter.
Thank you.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this opportunity to meet together as a city council, and citizens. We're grateful to be able to express our voices and work together to make Provo such a great place to live. We pray that will help us to be kind and considerate to everyone who is here and who is speaking, and that we'll be able to address the issue that's brought us here today, which is funding the library. We pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Angie. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance by Councillor George Handley.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first agenda item today, and we are joined by Travis Hoban. Our first agenda item today is, well, it's the only agenda item, is a public hearing regarding the Provo City Library tax rate for the fiscal year 2024 to 2025. And I gotta say, guys, we've received more information or emails, feedback on this particular item than I think every other item we've ever had on the agenda combined. So, way to go. I also just wanted to put it out there that I think I could bet my firstborn that this is going to pass tonight. So just know that we have read all the emails that have come through, even though there were a lot, and we heard you. And well, we know we'll have more to say and we'll all discuss. And I don't speak for the council as a whole, but we have, it looks like things are going to go your way on this one. So I just want to let you know that take whatever public comment you want, but know that that is the case. So Justin Harrison.
All right. Good evening, council. This has definitely been something that you all have discussed at great length over the last 4, 5, 6 months. So I don't want to be too repetitive, but I do want to give ample history for those who are in attendance and for those listening online. So got a presentation prepared for you. We'll go over a little bit of the history, how we got here, purpose of this hearing tonight, and then possible options for truth and taxation. So quickly, just a few important dates. So the state sets out a number of dates in state code that are required for all taxing entities that are proposing to raise their tax rates for any portion of their property tax. At the June 18th council meeting, a motion passed 6-1 to adopt the FY25 tentative budget for the purpose of increasing or proposing to increase the library portion of the property tax. And that set forth a number of the required notices that we'll go through here shortly. So the proposed rate increases were submitted via the state certified rate system to the State Tax Commission on June 20th. Here again is a little more detailed list that we've gone over a number of times on the requirements for truth and taxation So on or before June 22nd, taxing entities either need to adopt a fiscal year budget or a proposed tax rate. That was what was done on June 18th by the council by proposing a new tax rate or potential new tax rate for the library. Prior to the public hearing, a number of these notices must be posted in order to give the public ample notice and time to comment. So with multiple taxing entities within the county proposing increased property tax rates, this triggered Utah County posting a combined notice ad in the newspaper on July 25th, as well as August 1st. Provo City was responsible for their own ad, which was published in the Daily Herald on Thursday, August 8th. And here we are today in a public hearing at 6 o'clock. Briefly, again, this is a slide you're familiar with. The public may not be as familiar with, but just these are the property tax rates that are found in the state's system as they're reported. There are actually 4 portions that make up the Provo City property tax: general operations, which funds the general fund portion or goes towards funding the general fund portion of city revenues. You've got the interest and sinking fund or bond portion. This goes to pay off the general obligation bonds that the city has. This rate is not set by the council or through Truth and Taxation. This is actually set based off of what the bond payment is required. So each year this is adjusted by the State Tax Commission. The third portion is the library, and it's why we're here tonight. The library has a dedicated portion of the property tax here in Provo City. The last portion is referred to as discharge of judgment. The city doesn't have this on the property tax bill, but it is there and available. This could potentially be proposed if the city were ever to find itself having an outstanding judgment, or they were sued and needed to pay that. They could put this on the property tax portion of residents' property tax bill if they went through the truth and taxation process, but it's not, again, something that's on the property tax currently. So made up of three portions: general operations, bonds, and library. So each year, the council typically asks departments to come forward and present their budgets as they go through the fiscal year budget making process. Initially, the library came with a request for a $500,000 increase in property tax revenue. So this was prior to receiving final certified tax rates from the county. This was based off of property tax estimates. So in an effort to balance their operational budget, the library made a series of cuts that were in the tentative budget. You can see there on the screen, roughly $284,000. However, after certified tax rates were given to taxing entities like Provo City from the county, property tax revenue was higher than had originally been projected. So the projected shortfall and the ask from the library was reduced to roughly $450,000. Just a couple of slides really quick on those budget cuts. You'll see this slide before you. This was presented by the library in a joint meeting of the city council and the library board. These are the cuts that were initially made, those $284,000 cuts from the initial tentative budget that the library proposed. In that same meeting, this slide and the subsequent slide that I'll show, they were presented in that June 23rd joint meeting, or I'm sorry, July 23rd joint meeting, on what potential additional cuts would look like should the truth and taxation proposal not pass. So there would need to be, the library would need to make up roughly $450,000 in cuts. Here you have a proposal of roughly $59,000 in operational cuts, and then $438,000 in personnel cuts, is what would be proposed in some manner by the library in order to make up their shortfall should this not pass. So what's the purpose, or the proposal that's before the council today? Again, you all adopted a potential property tax rate on June 18th that included a certified tax rate for the library of 0.000440. That is slightly higher than the auditor certified tax rate of 0.000395. This proposed increase would look like just under $12 for an average home in Provo, which is valued at roughly $482,000. The revenue that would be brought in would be roughly $450,000, as you see there on the screen. So a little more background. This is a sample valuation notice that we put together. This time of year, there's typically lots of questions from residents on, they've received their valuation notices. They want to know, maybe they don't quite understand what exactly every line item means. So we've put this together really in hopes to educate property owners as to what their valuation notice means when it comes in the mail. So this top portion of the valuation notice includes the property owner's address. This is where the notice is mailed to. It also includes information to appeal for the property owner. They can reach out to the county for that appeal information. And in a few slides, we'll go through a couple of resources that the county has in order to appeal the valuation if residents feel that it's incorrect. So this line on the property tax notice is the valuation. So again, we use this example, $482,000. That's the average home value in Provo. This second line item is the residential tax exemption. So this is the 45% tax exemption that are given to residential properties owned by residents in the state. So as you can see, value was was $482,000. That 45% exemption is $216,900, which leads to a total taxable value of $265,100. This is the second portion of valuation notice. You'll see in this green box, these are all of the taxing entities within Provo City, or those that have the ability to tax residents through property tax within the city limits. So you've got county, state, city, school district, and water conservancy district are all entities that levy a property tax within the city. These are the rates from 2003. You'll see the 2004 rates to the right. And this is just to illustrate the changes in total tax rate. As you can see, most tax rates went down very slightly or stayed about the same. There were two tax rates that went slightly up, and these were statewide entities. So this is due to the fact, and we've gone over this a few times, that as valuations increase, rates decrease and vice versa. So we've seen there should be roughly the same amount of property tax paid by individuals overall. This is the Provo City line item on the valuation notice. As you can see, shows the taxes, the tax rate, or the proposed tax rate, as well as the proposed increase that would come from a property tax increase. So roughly $11.93 or 2.6%. So like we talked about, The Provo City portion of the property tax is broken into three subcategories. They're combined in the valuation notice. So that Provo City line item includes these three categories below: general operations, the bond funding, and library. And combined, this is what makes up the full Provo City property tax rate of 0.001775. And above there, you see the three individual property tax rates. And the proposal tonight is to increase that levy on the library portion from 0.000395 to 0.00044. So as you can see to the far right, this is the breakdown of the property tax bill in total. So roughly 17.5% of property taxes levied in the city go towards the city. The others go towards those other entities that are mentioned above: county, state, school district, and water conservancy district. But specifically the library makes up for roughly 4.3% of residents' property tax bills. Lastly, you'll see just the changes. So library property taxes on the whole of someone's property tax bill, if passed tonight, would go up by roughly 0.5%, just under. The interest and sinking fund or bond rate, property tax rate fell. This is due towards valuations going up. And so rates going down. Also, as additional principal is paid off, there's less for that property tax to pay for. And last, you have your general operations, which did go up slightly, even though that rate isn't being raised. So the last portion of the valuation notice includes just a notice to property owners of the taxing entities that are proposing a tax increase. So within the Provo City limits, you've got, obviously, why we're here tonight, the proposal for Provo City for the library. And the only other entity proposing to raise rates is Central Utah Water Conservancy District. And their meeting is August 27th at 6 o'clock. And they are located in Orem. So feel free to give public comment as they're there as well. Going back to the required public notices that taxing entities are required to post when proposing a change to truth and taxation. Just quickly want to go through the different required and then additional steps that the city went through to notify residents about the hearing tonight and the proposed rate increase. This is the combined truth and taxation notice that was posted by the county. This includes all entities in Utah County that are proposing a property tax increase. This was posted in the newspaper twice. This is the notice that was done specifically by Provo City, which was in the newspaper this last Thursday. There's also a requirement for notices to be posted on the Utah Legals website. This is an electronic forum that allows for citizens to see if there are any public notices within their jurisdiction. In addition, this is just some screenshots of the state public meeting notice website. Any notices for tax increases are also required to be posted here, in addition to agendas during every council meeting. So this has been posted there as well for the last number of weeks. Taxing entities are also required to post the proposed tax increase on the entity website. So this has been posted and updated a number of times over the last month or so on the Provo City website, along with a number of resources for citizens to better understand the truth and taxation process. This is just a quick screenshot of the actual notice in the Daily Herald that ran last Thursday. Ignore the the typo that says Dolly Herald. And these are just a few of the social media graphics that were posted. This isn't a requirement of the state, but this is something that the council felt strongly about, trying to notify residents of the potential property tax increase and allowing them to come out, voice their opinion either through phone calls, emails, or being here tonight to give public comment. So in addition, just real quick, this is just a little data visualization of what the breakdown of property tax looks like within the city. So if you remember a few slides back in the valuation notice, there were a number of taxing entities that levy a property tax within Provo City. So this dollar bill represents the percentage of each dollar that comes in via property tax that goes to these entities. So roughly 56% or 56 cents of every dollar in property tax goes to the Provo City School District. 17% goes to Provo City, 15% to the state, 8% to the county, and 4% to Central Utah Water Conservancy District. And again, I mentioned before, the Provo City rate, that 17%, is broken up into 3 categories: bonds, library, and general operations. I promise we do know how to add. I know that equals 18, but we just didn't want to use decimals. Rounding made things cleaner. So, so lastly, want to just review how valuation is determined. This isn't determined by the city, it's determined by the county. However, there are always lots of questions from property owners on how this is determined. So we've reached out to the county over the last couple of years to better understand and give information to property owners on how this is determined and what they can do if they feel it's incorrect. So the county assessor establishes market assessed value each year by appraising the value of the property under applicable state laws. Values determined in accordance with appraisal standards. And there are really 3 approaches to value properties. And so that is sales in the marketplace, income generated or that could be generated by a property, and the cost to replace or construct a similar structure. So other factors that are used in determining valuation include land use, the location of the property, the size of the property, and the condition of the property. So in addition, when determining valuation, the counties acknowledge that they don't get everything right. There are roughly 200,000 parcels in Utah County with buildings on a majority of them. And so there is an appeal process that property owners can go through if they feel that their valuation is incorrect. Success rates on appeals are roughly 70%. So if you feel that there's something incorrect, you've got a good chance of making that right. The one thing that the county has advised is ask yourself, could I sell the property for the assessed value? And if the answer is yes, then you probably have a correct assessment. If it's no, I won't give any advice, but you can reach out to the county and go through the appeal process and work through them. Just kind of in closing, a couple of taxpayer resources. These slides are all posted online with the agenda, and the links should work well. This will allow taxpayers to review the tentative budget that was adopted by the council. In addition, there's a copy of the citizens budget, which is just a simplified version of the full budget. And lastly, there are some links to contact information for the county assessor and the state tax commission. These are the bodies that assess the values of property. And they are also the bodies that allow and service as the appeal process for valuation, not the city, but would encourage you to reach out if you do have questions. So the deadline for appeals to valuations is 45 days after the notice is mailed, or September 15th, whichever is later. And lastly, these are just links to a number of property tax relief programs. So the Utah Division of Property Tax, as well as the county, has a number of forms and publications, as well as programs that offer property tax relief. Some of the programs include those for active duty service members, those who are legally blind, a number of circuit breaker programs for low income or older individuals, as well as for disabled veterans or those who have been killed in action. Lastly, next Tuesday, August 20th, here in the council chambers at 5:30 p.m. Will be the final budget adoption for fiscal year 25. So the property tax rate that is adopted tonight for the library will be included in that final budget adoption, and would encourage anyone who would like to come out and participate in that meeting to do so. I promise this is the last slide. This is just a sample motion, depending on what the council would like to do. So either to direct staff to prepare the FY25 budget to include the property tax rate for the library. 0.000395 is the assessor's certified tax rate. 0.000440 was the tax rate that was noticed for the purpose of this hearing and would bring in the additional $448,000 and change. So that is all I have. I've talked a lot. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Justin? Okay, thanks, Justin. All right, at this time, public comment is open. Each person has 2 minutes to speak, and we ask you please give your name and your city of residence. That's required for the recording. We record everything and take notes of, everybody who speaks. So the mic is open.
Hello, good evening, council, and there's press members and members of the community. My name is Amanda Ritter. I have lived in Provo with my family for the last 4 years or so. I have never been to a city council meeting, but I've always wanted to come. I have a great respect for and interest in local government, and part of that unabashedly comes from my love of the character Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation.
Oh, we got your email.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well, I'm going to basically say the same thing. Hopefully that's okay. All right. But unlike Leslie Knope, I really love libraries, and in the show, she hates libraries. I have a really, really big love for libraries and the services they provide to our communities. We have 3 kids, 7 and 4, and then a baby, and all 3 of my children have utilized the library countless times over the last 4 years, and myself and my husband too have utilized libraries several times. We have obviously checked out books and movies. We have spent the entire summer driving around in our minivan listening to audiobooks. We've done stuffed animal sleepovers, baby lap time, art projects, gardening classes, all kinds of things, seed swaps, you name it. And to those who may be unaware, the library has something for quite literally everyone. Just looking at their calendar, I saw things for yoga. I saw Dungeons and Dragons. I saw crafting, ukulele, piano, an instant pot class, senior activities, coding, movie nights, a magic show, and way, way more. So I just love to express my support for the bill or the motion. I don't know, I'm not a government girly. So
The tax increase.
Tax increase. I will show my support for it. And I just want to say thank you all for listening, taking time to hear our comments, and hope everybody has a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have everyone write their name and their city down so we can make sure we have it spelled correctly, and it'll be easier for our recorder to go back and correct things that are she didn't catch in time, so we're not bugging you.
Hello, my name is Hannah Quesada. I'm currently a Orem city resident. That's just how things worked out. After I lost my family earlier this year, I became homeless for about 3 months. The public library, the Provo City Library, upholds and connects many people to other resources. It is by using things like their scanners and printers that I was able to work with the Department of Workforce Services to get a job and be able to support myself on my own. I would like to show my support for this tax increase because the library does so much to support people in precarious and difficult situations like the one that I was in until very recently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amber Bullock. I live in Provo and I've lived here a little over 2 years. And so when I first moved here, one of the very first things I did after changing my address was get my library card. A library is a really important place for a sense of community. A lot of resources, lots of access to books and information, places to meet people. I attended a book club for a while. And then about actually a year ago, I attended a big romance author panel event. And I absolutely loved it. And then I got hooked on that genre. So then I thus started checking out more and more stuff on the Libby app. And so I'm listening to audiobooks from the Provo Library on a daily basis while I'm at work so I can get work done but still enjoy work. And so I use the library's resource on a daily basis. It's very important. I grew up going to public libraries all the time. My family didn't have a lot of income. And so we would go to the library to get books that were free. We couldn't always afford to go to Hollywood Video and Blockbuster, so we got movies from the library. It's a place for a lot of stuff for children to go to, that they can be in safe environments and experience new things. And so libraries are a very central part to a community that, for me as a new resident for the past 2 years, has found a lot of community and help through the library. So I very much support this tax increase.
Thank you. Just have to get close to
You
it.
got it. You're
Yeah,
really
there you
close.
go.
Okay, really breathe into it. First of all, I want to thank George Handley for his op-ed in the Daily Herald that supported the library increase and the reasons for that. That kind of delineates a lot of my reasons for supporting the library increase as well. But just a little context, I've been 34 years in Provo. I still live in Provo. And my husband and I supported the initial library tax bond and the increase and the line item for that. And I know that I was confused at the last meeting about that, but I support that. My children have grown up at the library, story time, summer reading, and they still use the library resources now. And now I take my grandchildren to the library. I don't know if you remember, but about 30 years ago, the library was just over here, and it was in this little space that was not much bigger than this. And so we really need that space that it's in now, but because the Library Academy is an older building, it needs more upkeep. So I'm grateful that we are looking at this, and I encourage you to support the full tax increase and not do a smaller amount. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Angie.
Hi, my name is Ben Weinheimer. We've lived in Provo for about 19 years. I came here as a grad student, and even though I planned on moving back home to Iowa, we liked Provo a lot, so we stayed. I want to share my desire for the property tax increase to go through. I read the information on the website, and I think $1 a year is a pretty reasonable thing to ask people. I recognize
You mean $1 a month?
$1 a month. Sorry. Thank you for saying that. I screwed that up. But I think $1 a month is a pretty reasonable thing to ask people. I know that in Provo, we're of more of a traditional persuasion. And I know that Republican politics dominates because a lot of people here are. And I know that in a lot of cases, Republicans are pretty anti-tax. That's kind of a platform that Republicans have. And I'm a registered Republican for what it's worth. But another big emphasis within the party is on healthy communities and families. And I can tell you that when my oldest, who are now 20 and 18, when they were little girls, we were doing the fairy tea party at the library. And I used to work for Wasatch Behavioral Health, and we did our annual conferences in the library room upstairs on the 3rd floor quite often. And I may have said this last time when we had the meeting, but long story short, my 7-year-old, when she found out that there was going to be a shortfall, she only has about $5.23 to her name. And she is saving up because she wants to buy Legos. And she said, I will give all of my money to the library if that will help. So I just want people to know that the library is worthwhile. It's also, I only have 7 seconds, but it's a great place for new immigrant families to bring their children and connect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, council members. My name is Devin Thurgood. I've been living in Provo for about 5 years now, I think it is. We're approaching the 5th year anyhow. And like the gentleman who spoke before me, I'm also a registered Republican. But something that I know about the library is I used to work at the library and I've seen how beneficial it is to a lot of people. I was a security guard at the time, but it had a huge impact on a lot of people's lives. And beyond that, even for those who don't use the library, the existence of the library and people going there benefits all of us here in Provo, even if you've never set foot in the building yourself. Provo, I know, has been held up as one of the best run cities in the country. And I think that's because of the community that we have here. There's a lot of resources that people can have, that people have access to, that enable them to provide for themselves and give back to the community. And the library, even though it doesn't look like it directly increases city funds, does provide a lot to equip our citizens to give back to our community. So I think it's very important that we support the library in every way that we can, and I fully support this increase as well and hope you'll consider passing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Victoria Black. I currently live in the fine city of Cedar Hills, but hopefully soon I'll be living a bit closer to here. Growing up in an LDS family instilled in me the value of education. It was my greatest dream to go to Brigham Young University. That didn't end up working out for me, and neither did a traditional college education. But access to city libraries, like the Provo City Library, has helped me to continue learning and continue growing. I'm currently writing my own little paper about the Spanish Civil War, fully from books that I have acquired from the Provo City Library. I know that we here in Utah don't like taxes very much, but we do love learning, and the Provo City Library has helped me further my love of learning, which is why I support this tax increase.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex Larson. I'm a resident of Orem currently, but I spend a lot of time in Provo, and I spend a great deal of time at the Provo Library. I'm a student at UVU studying computer engineering, and I love to just come to the library to study. Provo is one of my favorite libraries, just to come just to do homework, use the Wi-Fi, and get a nice quiet environment. Maybe I shouldn't admit this on the record, but I actually have 2 overdue books there right now that I forgot to bring with me to return on this trip, so I'll have to do that another time, but maybe don't tell them that. I think libraries are—
They heard you.
I think libraries are a really valuable part of a community. I think an essential part of a free society is a society that's educated and has access to information. And I think that the library provides that for a lot of people, myself included. Even with just internet access at my apartment, the library does a lot more than just the internet would, and it provides a feeling of community and connection I don't think we'd get elsewhere. So like I said, I'm a resident of Orem, but I personally benefit from the Provo City Library quite a bit, and I hope that it gets the funding it needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Nathaniel Peterson. I've been born and raised in Provo. My family's 3 generations here. I just wanted to reaffirm my support of this tax increase and to actually say that I would support it if it was higher. And just, yeah, libraries are important. I hope you all appreciate this opportunity to do something very concrete and very civic feel-goody. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Christina Sandholtz. I've lived in Provo for 3 years now. My husband teaches at BYU and we love the library. We have 2 little girls and it's been a good place that's free and indoors to go when you have to get out of the house and there's nowhere to go when your little girls are driving you crazy. I also just want to add that I understand that tax increases are horrible, but I think that in this case it would be worth it because things that have helped me growing up in my life to have resources when we couldn't afford a lot of resources were from the library. And so I feel like even though everybody's feeling a financial squeeze, the library is something that can alleviate that and we should be putting our resources towards.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexis Hughley, and I'm a citizen of Provo. I have lived here. I first became a resident in 2014 when I moved here to attend BYU. And since then, Provo has become a home and a sort of launch pad for me. I've spent time living in Phoenix, Arizona, New York City, and I'm originally from Price, Utah. But I always seem to make my way back to Provo. It's a city I love and that I'm happy to be a citizen of. I just moved back to Provo this May after spending several years in New York City. And one of my first stops in becoming reestablished here was to visit the Provo City Library. So I was shocked when a couple weeks later, I received an email from the library board considering cutting services because the Provo Library already seemed to have so many fewer resources than the libraries in those other cities I had lived in. I found this most surprising because Provo is a city that generally takes better care of its citizens in those places. At BYU, I studied civic engagement leadership, and it is my informed opinion that we must increase library funding and not cut any services this year. In fact, I would encourage the board to reallocate some portion of the budget to add additional library services in a surplus of what is proposed. Investing in the library done thoughtfully will pay off substantially for the city of Provo. It is an investment that will ultimately decrease costs across the board. I believe in small government, and I understand that a well-resourced library is a cornerstone to accomplishing that. The library is one of the last free indoor public spaces that exist. It's a place that children come to frequently, and because of this, it's a space where all sorts of services and education can be offered to families that might otherwise get missed. It doesn't seem as if the Provo Library currently has the resources to be acting at its full potential as a true resource for every single person in our community. The cutting of services would increase my own yearly expenses significantly. It is a workspace. I frequently check out cameras, books, ebooks, movies, and use the on.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Hannah Evanson, and I lived in Provo for about 10 years. I'd like to share some things that I feel about the library and its budget and some things that maybe I've been hearing from my fellow homeowners in my neighborhood. I come from a place in the country where we had a county library system. And so when I moved to Provo and found that we only had just the Provo library to work with, and it only had Provo resources, I was really nervous that it wouldn't have the services and the resources to be able to keep me feeling satiated with books and social activities and all those things that make life work, living above and beyond working and paying the bills. But I was really impressed to find, and I'm always finding new things that the library is offering. Some of the things that were mentioned, like seed exchanges, D&D, like things you in my neighborhood in Provo would be really difficult to do because we live in a place where there's a lot of residential turnover. A lot of our neighbors come and go every few months. So if we want to do those kinds of things, we can have a long-term relationship with the city through the middle person of the library. And that brings a lot of value to our lives. I do think that Provo has invested, unlike a lot of cities that I've lived in, invested in its families, given them those things to make their lives worthwhile, which makes it a desirable and a lucrative place to live, which, as was said, has benefited the city financially, and it's a value add, in my opinion. I do think that maybe not all of the services are getting as used as other services. So maybe there's some prudence that needs to be applied in determining, you know, which services are more high priority. So I understand that perspective, but I also noticed wage increases, which could also be good to prioritize. So
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Flynn Ezra Beckman. I've been a resident of Provo since August 2nd because I came here to join my lovely partner, Alexis Hugely, who spoke earlier, and I'm going to finish the statement that she unfortunately couldn't make in 2 minutes. So in addition
That's
to using...
love.
In addition to using the library as a workspace, she frequently checks out cameras, books, ebooks, movies, and uses the online resources. She uses all of those services for business in Provo, giving back and benefiting the community economically. She uses the library's online journal subscriptions to look into medical and legal research. She would struggle to afford access to those services on her own and would forego the access to knowledge if the library was forced to cut online services. The library is not a frivolous luxury that can be just tacked on to the end of a budget. Cutting services is no different from burning books. Just because information exists online doesn't change the fact that government officials are destroying access to knowledge. Free access to information and resources are necessary elements to being participating members of a society and accessing free speech. Provo is a city rich in resources and typically quite good at doing community well. The heart of our community is our public library. We need a better and more funded library than the one we have currently, but at least our city council can do is maintain funding for the services we have now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Emily Weinheimer. I'm a Provo resident, and I've lived here for 19 years. And before that, I was born in Provo and lived here briefly, but then grew up in Colorado and then in the East Coast in Maryland and New York. And I've spent time in Iowa too. And I just want to say, I just see the library as a great equalizer for our community. I've utilized the resources so much for my young families. They've been growing up and going to story time and checking things out. But I've also run into other, like, my daughter was attending Timpanogos Elementary, and which is a Spanish immersion, and a lot of the other kids are from like first time, like their parents don't necessarily speak really very good English and stuff. And so there's a lot of Spanish speakers in there. And so I met one of the mothers there one night, and she'd recently gotten divorced. And so her resources are very small. And she was there with all of her kids doing homework because they had internet, they had computer, and they had access to the things they needed to be able to do homework and to be able to help her kids get ahead in the world. And I just think that I fully support the tax increase, and I'd love for the council to consider, do we need to do more than that? Not just to meet the needs currently, because it sounds like they even have to make some cuts still, but I just think that this is a great resource for our community and to continue developing good citizens and creating the kind of community we want to have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more public comment before we?
Hi, my name is Luke Pryor. I'm a Provo resident. I've lived here for approaching 5 years now. I'm a UVU student studying accounting, and I've really loved my time in Provo. One of the first things I did when I got here was get a library card. And the biggest impact the library has in my life is the fact that I'm able to access the online Libby app and get audiobooks there to listen. I work at an accounting firm. It's in Draper, so I have a little bit of a commute. And so having an audiobook to listen to that during like the 30-minute drive that is probably one of the best parts of my day. And so without having access to that, it would definitely be very cost prohibitive to have access to audiobooks like that. Additionally, I also would mirror what has been said earlier. I have a lot of really fond memories of going to libraries when I was a lot younger, when my mom didn't have a lot of resources to, have entertainment for us kids growing up. And it's definitely a really fond place for me. And I definitely think that libraries are a very inexpensive way to provide a lot of really great resources to the broader community and to a lot of individuals that honestly probably can't even come to this meeting because of jobs or lack of like transportation or things like that. And I just want to express my support for this tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, council, I was here for the last meeting, so I want to say hello again. Just wanted to share a theme that I've kind of noticed with everybody
Name.
here. Oh, Hamlet, Gordillo, like the Shakespeare play. Thank you. The theme here that I've noticed is community, right? I've born and raised here. I'm a resident of Vineyard, but I've lived here for years. We tried to get a home in Provo. We couldn't find one that fit, but my mother-in-law lives here, sister lives here. As soon as we can find a place here, like in 10 years, we want to be back here in Provo. This is how much we love Provo. Want to share just a little thing. We are a very thrifty people, and I love it. We get together as a community and we figure out ways to stretch our dollars. What I love is that we're not a cheap people. So I feel like not increasing the budget for the library would be a cheap move, and actually increasing our taxes slightly to do it would be a frugal move, where actually we get a lot of bang for the buck for this little bit with all that the community earns from it. I put my money where my mouth is. Even though I'm no longer in Provo, I donate to the library to support it. That's how much my wife and I do it. And we will do it ever since this, we will put aside money every year to donate, and not just a little bit, but donate at least, 150 to the library every year. That's how much it means to us and the community, because even though we're not here and I'm very active in the Vineyard neighborhood, I want to have that heart here. So when we come back, we also come back to a home with welcoming arms for us. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much for listening to us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Hamlet.
Hi, Terry. Oh, I shouldn't touch it. And I am a resident of Provo. My family and I absolutely use library resources, but even if we didn't, I would support this tax increase. Libraries are a way for the most vulnerable people in our population to get access to education and books and knowledge, and have a way to meet with each other that is in a safe and comfortable place. And I feel that all of us benefit when we live in a society where we support the most vulnerable among us, in addition to having an educated community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. In this lull, I'd like to acknowledge that the Mayor, Michelle Gafusi, joined us before public comment started.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jessica Curtis. I'm from Provo. You'll have to excuse my nervousness. I am terrified of public speaking, but this is very important to me. Our motto for the city is excellent care for an excellent community, and I see that in the library more than anywhere else. I know that everything that goes to the library comes straight back to the community, regardless of circumstance or religion or language or age. Everyone benefits from the library. There is something for everyone there. And as a gentleman said earlier, even if you have never set foot in the library, the city as a whole benefits from having a library that is able to offer everything that it does. One of the reasons the library is facing a budgetary shortfall is because of maintenance being done on the Academy building, as I'm sure you already know. We, as a city, have shown such care for our history and being able to put the library in that building and be able to restore it because it is such an iconic part of our city. And I would like to urge you to pass this proposal because I do not believe that valuing our history should come at an expense to our present and our future. And I know that libraries are an investment in our future, in our children, in our community, and in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can go write your name down, please.
My name is Clarissa Ratliff. I've been living in Provo for almost 10 years now. We only moved back to Utah. We didn't want to move back to Utah, but we chose Provo specifically for the library because of how wonderful it is. We wanted to raise our family here, specifically in Provo, so that we could use library services. My mother-in-law worked for a library in Kern County, California. I don't know if you're familiar. They have the lowest funded libraries in the state. She worked there for more than 20 years, and I've seen firsthand how much a city will wither without funding libraries. It's so important to the community. And even if I didn't use the library, I would pay more than this tax increase. I encourage you to do it more. I mean, I think you can't because you're telling us this is how much you do, but increase it more. We will pay, I would happily pay more for everyone in our community to have the access to the library and the wonderful services that it provides. And again, my husband's hometown is a nightmare. It's very sad because people leave and they don't come back, and it's like tumbleweeds, like in a cartoon. It's so sad. They did the best that they could with the budget that they had, but it's withering. And their community deserves better. All communities deserve better. All communities deserve wonderful libraries like ours, and ours could be even better the more budget we give it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Penny Steyer. I grew up in Provo. I've moved back a couple months ago as an adult. The very first thing I did was get a library card. I really love the library. I kind of grew up in the library in a way. One of my favorite sights to see when I go there are little kids having similar experiences that I did when I was that age. And I believe really strongly that having an informed population is an important part of a functional democracy. And I think that supporting this tax increase, the benefits would be just so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment? For those who don't know, Dave Shipley used to be up here at on the council with us.
Thank you. So Dave Shipley in Provo. I think most of what I would say today has already been said, so I'll just keep it short. But the thing I do want to say is in a community like ours, when you ask for additional funding and ask for additional tax, you bring scrutiny on yourselves. You bring scrutiny to your department. You bring scrutiny that sometimes is really unwarranted. And in this case, for the sake of the library, I feel like I'd just like to thank Carla and the group that has brought this forward. It takes a lot of courage. It's a lot easier not to do things like this. It's a lot easier to cut people actually than it is to ask for tax increases in a community like ours, because of what the blowback that happens in a community like ours. So I applaud their courage. I applaud their care with our resources. Nobody's getting rich at the library. They get a lot of value for our community out of the dollars that we give them. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to them and their courage to do this. We could continue to fund them less every year like we've been doing. And at some point, the programs would shrink and the value that you've heard about today would shrink. But I think this is an investment, a good investment in our community, and I'm grateful that they brought it forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any online comments? Okay.
My name is Pam Jones. I've lived in Provo for well over 30 years. So far, the meeting has been a love fest for libraries. So I feel like I need to give equal time to the opposite side of the question. I remember when the old academy was bought by Provo City with the intention of turning it into the library, because the one where the Covey Center is now was inadequate. And I didn't like taxes, but I had to realize that if I was going to vote for anything, it should be a library, because I've always been a reader and I do use the library. I just want to remind you, as a taxing authority, that a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there adds up. And there are many people in the community who are very tight on their budgets. So if you agree to fund the library, remember that in other issues involving taxes, that you need to remember that you're spending other people's money.
Thanks, Pam.
Hi, and my name is Molly Baker. I'm losing my voice, so I apologize. I just wanted to share my support. I live in Provo. I've lived here for about 12 years. I am actually a librarian at the Payson Library, but I live here in Provo and I love Provo. And I recently am moving, and one of my main things when I was deciding to move is I wanted to stay in Provo because I wanted to still have access to the library. And I also volunteer at the Provo Library. And even though I have a full-time job, I love that library. And I fully support the tax increase and would love for them to be able to continue to offer all the services they do. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment before we close it? All right, seeing no other public comment, we will close. Oh, do you have an online one? Okay, if you are online, you can unmute yourself and comment, please. Whoever had their hand raised. Unmute yourself and comment, please. Whoever had their hand raised. Oh, that was me. And comment, please. Whoever had their hand raised. That was me.
Sorry, is that me?
Sure, go ahead with public comment. You have 2 minutes.
Sorry, my name's Sharon Memmott, and I just needed to comment. I agree with the comments that have been made. We fully support the library. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about closing the library. we may need to cut some services. But as I listened to the meeting here, and especially as I listened to it with my family, we listened to the presentation, and what we didn't hear is a truth in taxation idea. We heard some programs mentioned and that some things would be cut, but we didn't hear, say, what salaries actually are, say, of the director, or if there's a board of directors and what they make, and when was their last increase. I didn't hear it mentioned at all that there was a raise in taxes just last year, or how much that was, so that we can put that into perspective with this. I'd love to hear more about which programs actually cost our library, or I should say, well, that's it. Which programs cost the library to run, which are given by grants, which cover themselves, as we talk about different programs that might be worth cutting and which are worth funding, continuing to fund. Thank you.
In the comments, if you could please put your name and your city of residence, and if you put your email, we can send the library budget to you. We've had many meetings about a lot of the particulars that you were just talking about. Okay, any more public comment? All right, seeing no public comment, we will close public comment. All right, so now is the time for the council to discuss the proposed tax increase. And is there any discussion by the councilors? Councilor Gary Garrett.
Thank you, Catrice. It's been inspiring listening to and hearing the remarkable input and feedback from residents here. We've had an opportunity for several months now to receive input from the neighborhood. In fact, early in this process, one of our members was helping us track comments. I think we stopped counting at 200 a couple of months ago. If we have reached 1,000 comments, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd like to acknowledge two groups in my comments. First, a group that I think until the end was not represented here tonight, and that may be underrepresented because in one of the tracking tools that they gave us for public comment, they reported that about 75% supported the proposed increase, and about a quarter, about 25%, had concerns. And that's what makes this an issue. That's what gives us the opportunity to look closely at what's being proposed. But I want to acknowledge that group, who many who are on fixed incomes, and but assure them that we look closely at anything related to the budget, and acknowledge that we are spending your funds. One data point that was shared with us was that over 70,000 library cards have been issued. That's impressive, considering our city's population is 115,000. Now, we know many of those are from outside of Provo. Some of you spoke tonight, but it did say that over 20,000 library cards have been active in the last 6 months. We know it is a highly regarded and respected library. The other group I want to acknowledge is we've talked, everybody knows what this event, what this Truth and Taxation hearing is about. It's about the library and their funding. I wanted to acknowledge and talk about what it is not. Our city's staff and department heads and administration have worked for months since January of this year to present to the council a balanced budget for the general fund. Delaying, looking for creative and disciplined ways that expenses could be delayed or thought through in a way that could balance our budget. Sometimes, and if the council agrees to vote for this increase, it might get reported in the media that the council has approved a tax increase. And while that's true for the library, it doesn't acknowledge the tremendous work and effort of staff, administration, department heads in doing what they can to give Provo residents a break this year and not propose a tax increase to the general fund. And so if that does get reported by the media, that a tax increase was approved by the council, tell your friends and neighbors, share that part of the message as well, that the city has worked hard to be disciplined in its budget. I know the library has been doing this as well this year. Carla and others have worked hard to be disciplined and made significant cuts to their program. I acknowledge the work that they've done and acknowledge the tremendous support by our residents for the library, and intend to vote in favor of the increase. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Any other comments? Okay. I thought you would. George Hanley.
Well, I just want to, I want to echo something that Dave Shipley said. I want to thank Carla and her staff. I think over the last several weeks, we got an outstanding tour of the facilities in the library. I learned a lot of new things that I didn't know. We had a really productive meeting with the board and with Carla, who walked us through every detail of the budget, which Sharon Mehmet's comments may be benefited by looking at. Anyone who has any questions about those kinds of things, that was covered very, very carefully by Carla. And I felt like, you know, at no point were the staff of the library defensive or evasive in answering questions. They were very forthright and helpful to us. And you know, as I also want to thank my fellow counselors. I mean, this is a very uncomfortable position for us to be in as well. And, you know, there were honest questions to be asked to make sure that this was necessary. And I've appreciated the diligence and the responsibility that they've demonstrated in trying to be really, really careful about making this decision and really looking under the hood carefully to make sure that things are, you know, well managed and that we're doing the right thing by the citizens and by the city. And so I've just really appreciated the tone and the carefulness of this council, even though we've had some differences of opinion. We've asked different kinds of questions. I've really admired and respected their efforts as a council as a whole. It's a real privilege to work with them. And I also want to thank the public. I've been on the council for 6.5 years. I've never seen anything comparable in terms of public input on any issue we've ever confronted in the city. Never have I received so many emails on one singular issue. I might also add, I've never seen quite so much of a strong view dominating among all of those comments asking us to support this. And then several of you have alluded to this. It's not an easy thing in this political culture that we have, for good reason. We don't like spending money for no reason, and I respect that spirit of Provo. But I've been deeply moved by the statements that were made tonight and that we've received through email that really expressed to me a sense of community and common bonds and commitment and sacrifice that the community is willing to make on behalf of the whole. That really deeply moves me. I think that's really the thing that makes Provo great as a community, is that spirit of collective well-being and generosity, and a public library is such a beautiful expression of that. And I think few of us would argue with the fact that we have one of the most beautiful libraries in the country, if not in the world. And the services that it offers are equal to the building. And I think we owe it to our community to support this. I wish we were supporting it more than we are. I do recognize that their ask was modest. They are already willing to make cuts in their budget that are going to hurt a little bit. I respect that, but I do think our work is probably not done as a council and as a community in making sure that we can take good care of the library and its building for the future for our children. So I hope that we can all maintain our focus on that. So I'm not surprising anybody by saying that I'm going to support this. So thank you.
Craig Christensen.
Well, I too am a big fan of the library. 2 or 3 books a week without Libby, you're right, the commute would just be torturous anywhere you're going. And that's not my job. My job on the city council is to be a steward with your money. And that's not something I take lightly. So I came into the process very skeptical, as I would with anything, whether I like it or not, whether I use it or not. It's my responsibility to look at even the little tiny increases because they do add up. And so I did a lot of research, and I want to be clear that I am satisfied that this increase needs to take place. I have been very pleased with what the work the library has done. We've done a deep dive into the library. We've turned over every stone. Carla has been so helpful and so forthcoming. And I am glad that to be in a place where I feel comfortable lending my support to just such a wonderful program, such a beautiful library. And so I'm grateful for everyone's patience, so grateful that you would show up tonight, and for the thousands and thousands of whether they were actually sent or not, cards and letters. The outreach has been very demonstrative in terms of the love for the library. It's been great to take a look at the details and feel comfortable in voting for this increase.
Councilor Rachel Whipple.
I just want to express my sincere gratitude to all of you for coming tonight, for all of the emails we've gotten. I love that we've got this level of civic engagement, that you're coming and speaking out on the services that you use in your community, about the taxes and how this affects you in your community. And I would love for you to continue to be engaged on other issues, because this is how we have a vibrant democracy. And this is a key example of how the library, this source of information and community, is the focal point of democracy for us. So thank you all so much. I also want to thank our library director, Carla, and the library board and staff who have spent so many hours working on this and helping us as a council understand their expenses, their needs, and working with us too on thinking through what can be cut, how can they be more lean so that they can be more efficient and still provide services to the community, because those were incredibly painful conversations. And those are the kinds of conversations that make our institution stronger, because we have the confidence that we're going forward in the best course right now. And so I'm very grateful to you for that. And I'd also like to express my gratitude to my fellow councilors. This was a hard sell. This was a lot to ask. And you all came with your open mind and your questions and invested the time to understand the answers. And when, one answer led to other questions, you asked them. And so I think this is probably the most engaged and informed that we as a council have been on any of the issues. So thank you. Thank you. I'm currently serving as our city council liaison or board member for the library, which is not a position that I sought out because I already care about the library. It's in my district. We moved to Provo and bought a house within walking distance of the library. I was already inclined to be supportive. Through this process, I've gotten so many more reasons to love our library, to love the people who work there, who volunteer there, and to love all of you who go there as patrons and make this a vibrant community. So thank you.
All right, I can echo everything that the public has said. Thank you for coming out today. I am with Craig a bit. At the first, my inclination was not to do any tax increases this year. We said no to the city tax increases. I think everyone is feeling it, right? I mean, my mortgage, my insurance, my groceries, my gas, it's all up 20% the last couple of years. 20%. That's crazy. It's been a lot. I know it's really hard on some people, especially the fixed income and others that, prices are just going up faster than our income is, right? So I thought this is what the public would want. I was definitely learned otherwise. As George said, we've gotten incredible engagement, more than I've gotten on anything ever. Like, you guys need to put your energies behind some other things too and fix the world, peace, and I don't know, everything. So kudos. Like Rachel said, it's a very big deal that we have this kind of audience tonight. And I just feel like we need to do a little education here on some city stuff. We want to see you on some other things. So like the mill rate, our tax rate that we do with things, the library is basically at 40% of what they could be. Like you guys know, for 20 years, they didn't ask for an increase. And that was their choice. It wasn't like we denied it. They didn't want an increase. They wanted to go off their savings, the account that they had from so their budget was always increasing those 20 years. They were just using a savings account to pay for it. The city's at an 8% of their mill rate. So we could technically increase taxes 92%. Like, it's just an interesting thing how frugal we have been as a city and how considerate we are. And, past administrations and past councils of the citizens' money, it's a big responsibility. And I know that we're missing tons of sidewalks, tens of millions of dollars we need in sidewalk repair. Tens of millions of dollars we need in infrastructure for our sewers and our water supply, which our water supply is the third greatest in the nation. That's awesome. There's a lot of wonderful things that we do, but there's also a lot of needs. We're always down on firemen and policemen. And as someone where I have a child that wouldn't be alive today if the police hadn't shown up, that's an incredibly thing that I'm grateful for and emotional about. And it's interesting to see how many lives have emotionally been affected by the library, right? And even the understanding that our society as a whole, whether we even enter it ever, that it helps us as a society as a whole is a huge deal. And it's a truth. Just like an educated population, it's why we support public school, right? So, also, I think it's important to recognize that when we don't increase taxes at all, the spending power always goes down. It doesn't stay the same. So even just increasing taxes every year, every entity, they can be just increasing it for just inflation. And like, when you think about it, if we're giving tax increases to employees, right, you're already cutting out of the budget there and even getting less money than you. So, for example, with the city that we didn't increase them, there was way less money to spend in every single department. But we thought that's what was needed this year, right? So I don't know. I support this. My job is to represent the people of the city, and you have spoken. Now, do I believe every person owns a property or every person lives in Provo? No. But the response was overwhelmingly enough that I think, received more emails from Provo property owners than I have on anything ever. So thank you for that. Are there any other comments? Councilor Travis Hoban.
Well, I voted no, and so I was looking at this crowd thinking I don't want to get run out of town here on my way out to my car, so I better explain. But I think my hesitancy, first of all, I love the library. Family uses it regularly, very supportive of the library. I was raised in a low income family, so we kind of lived at the library in the summers. And it was great. But I think my hesitancy comes from the deficit the library's been running has been kind of a moving target. So last year, the taxes were increased for the library, stated $400,000 to $500,000 deficit. This year, it was an $800,000 deficit after the $100,000 tax increase that we had done. So that gives me pause. I'd like to see what we can do as far as annual giving goes, donations, corporate sponsorships. Also see how we can, I don't think there's any one silver bullet, but just see what we can chip away with as far as increasing certain fees that are more voluntary, such as some of the meeting space rental fees and things like that. And so I'd like to see if we, can kind of crank up the donations, the annual giving and such in certain areas, the revenues in other areas, and then also get a real good baseline of what the actual deficit is, since it's been such a moving target. And I understand costs vary from year to year, but that was just such a significant variation there from year to year that it just gives me pause. So just wanted to explain why I'd be voting no. Doesn't have anything to do with my lack of love for the library or wanting to support the library, but just more so wanting to kind of a fiscal responsibility approach and just have a better baseline for us. And then we can determine exactly what that deficit is, and then know that if we do a tax increase, that it should, be enough to sustain the library moving forward. So thanks.
No more public. Councilor Becky Bogdan.
I guess I'm the only one that we did dig into this. Every council member did dig really, really deep into the library budget. So I want to, we have to thank Carla for all of her answers. She did spend hours, I'm sure. She did just answering my questions. I'm sure she did for everyone else's as well. As far as West Provo goes, I didn't get a whole lot of emails from West Provo. I did get a couple of phone calls. And if you look at the heat map of current library memberships, there's not a whole great lot clear over in West Provo because we are further away from the library. There are people that I do hear from West Provo that do love the library. And then there are folks over there that are just like, I cannot afford another penny more. We do take all of those comments very seriously, whether you love the library or whether you're just struggling where you're at, trying to make ends meet, and another dollar more really does hurt. But we do take everything seriously. I want you to all know that. And then we do take our responsibilities seriously about taxes and libraries and programs and firefighters and all of it we do take very seriously. And we are grateful for all the comments that we do get. We learn a lot from all of the emails that we get. So that's all I have to say is that just know, however this works out, that we really, really have done our homework, and whatever this works out, we really do believe in whatever we did because we stand behind it. Right, thanks.
All right. Well, at this time, is there anyone that would like to make a motion to adopt the property tax rate or the property tax rate for the library?
Madam Chair, can I interject? Just a reminder that tonight's vote is not on whether to adopt the property tax increase or not.
Right. But
Today's
we're
just-
directing staff.
Right. So I didn't catch that in what you just asked as far as when you were asking about what the.
All right. Can we get a motion on directing the staff to pick a rate to adopt in the next meeting when we vote?
I would like to move that we direct staff to prepare the FY 2025 budget to include a library portion of the property tax rate to 0.000440.
I would second that.
I wasn't quite done.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'll second that. I'll be second to do it.
Yeah, but I would also like to specify that the budget account that we deposit those funds to, do we do this in the same motion or different?
So actually, you don't need to do that. It's already.
Then we're
in
good,
the-
Craig.
In the tentative budget, what will change is the revenues in that budget that will be adopted.
Excellent. Yeah, the other thing that will change in that budget is the tentative budget that we adopted showed those funds being taken out of their savings account, and that will no longer happen. Thank you.
And I still second that.
Yay. All right. Well, any discussion on the motion? All right, we'll take a vote on the motion. Counselor Becky Bogdan,
Yes.
Counselor Gary Garrett,
Yes.
Counselor Rachel Whipple. Yes. Counselor Patrice McKay, yes. Counselor Travis Hoban,
No.
Counselor George Hanley,
Yes.
and Counselor Craig Christensen.
Yes.
So that motion passes 6-1. So what that means is that when we take the actual vote on this, it will be August 30th, isn't that correct?
No.
20th,
Tuesday.
next Tuesday. Okay, in a week. So in a week, we will take a vote in a regular council meeting for it. But I just want to welcome you guys to be disengaged in some other things. If you want to get on our newsletter list and get more info about the city council, I have a personal newsletter you can get on. You can get on the city newsletter and the council newsletter and our neighborhood newsletter. Speak to our staff over here, and there's QR codes you can do, or they can get your email and get it processed. But we just love all the engagement. Thank you so much. And we'll be adjourning this meeting by unanimous consent if there is no objection.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
It's soy sauce.